Next subject I want to, and I'm going to address you first on this, Jeff, and then I want to talk to you about on the state level.
Okay.
Crime is this skyrockets. Now the folks that are watching, I think most people still get a tear in their eye thinking about it. The travesty that happened here, the elderly couple that was murdered.
Terrible.
97, 93 years old, husband and wife were murdered by a guy that just wandered into their home and killed them. And we go, how did this happen? There's a lot of things that have gone on behind the scenes since that happened.
That's correct.
To stop this from ever happening again. I want you to go into this with me.
So I can echo what we'd said before on the show a week or so ago, and then give it another update that's happened since then. So just to recap, what we had is we had an individual that was arrested on a nonviolent offense, was sentenced after 8 months of being in prison. This individual was a model inmate. Did not have any issues. And so when it came time for the parole board to take a look at this individual, they said, you know what, everything looks good.
Now, again, what you just said was he had as a minor crime that he done to begin with.
It was I believe, drug possession crime.
Yeah, it wasn't much to it.
It wasn't violent, and he was a model inmate. Well, he was paroled. It takes 14 months for this individual to find a place that will actually take him in. We had talked earlier about the perhaps inmates were being dropped off at the bus
the train
stop.
station.
We'll get back to that, okay? Because I do want to address that. And I told you something on that show that we were following up on it. I don't want you to just think that I was just saying that. So over the next 14 months, this inmate, who was a model inmate, went crazy, was able to get drugs smuggled to him, was violent, did just a lot of things that could tell you this person was not mentally right. You would think that the prison would know to hold that individual, to go to someone and be like, are we sure we want to let this individual out? I believe it was Executive Order number 72 or 73 that Commissioner Burl Cain passed down over the last few weeks that basically says that if an inmate is paroled, between the parole date and the exit date, if there are any rule violations whatsoever, that the parole board has to reevaluate that decision. And so because of that, I hate that happened to the Harrington family, but what that executive order will do is that'll put an end to the next victim. And that next victim may not have been a victim of murder. It may have been rape. It may have been assault. It may have been a drunk driving. Who knows what it could have been, but it'll prevent that. So I'm glad that that was something that you didn't think would need to be passed.
And I guess through the years, no one thought of it.
No one thought of it, but now that we've had it, here's the way I look at it. If that happens and you don't address it, then you're the problem then. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need to fix it. And if you fix it, then you've done what you're supposed to do. So talking about the bus station. Fact is, I don't think that MDOC is aware that bus station doesn't have a live individual there actually being able to sell you tickets to go to wherever. So what we have is individuals that are being dropped off with the intention of going inside, buying a ticket, and going to their next destination. That site being the best stop for them to go. We're going to make sure that MDOC, and this conversation's already started, to know that, listen, you have to have a smartphone if you want to get a ticket at the bus station.
And if you just got out of prison, odds you haven't had it.
So, and look, I talked with Meridian PD last week. Those individuals have not been causing any problems. What it is they think that they're about to get a bus ticket to go home. They find out that, hey, here's a roadblock set up to where they can't purchase that ticket to go to their house. That makes them have to, find a way to get a ticket, which you have somebody that was just released from prison. You don't really want to talk to them about trying to arrange their travel.
Correct.
But anyway, that is being addressed. Things with these halfway houses, these transitional houses that allow for these inmates to come out. It's something that is necessary and we need more of, but we need to also make sure that we have the oversight on these facilities and with MDOC to make sure that the right decisions are being made.
Does every town have these halfway houses, or is it just Meridian?
Well, that's what we're trying to dig into, because you can't really find a registry of them. And that's
I think we should have that.
We should have that. You're exactly right. And there's two different sides of that. There's the criminal and then there's the mental. And so we've got a team together. I'm kind of just volunteering to go about the mental side of it to see just exactly where these houses are, make sure that everything's going right. And again, it's necessary, okay? It's necessary. We need more of them. There needs to be this transition from prison to real life. But at the same time, we need to make sure that you can't just check in and check out, that you can't go missing, and that we need to make sure that if you're an inmate that has gone crazy, even though you've been paroled, you should not necessarily be able to get out. And so all these things are being looked into. It's near and dear because of what happened over this past spring with the Harrington family.
Yeah, I think individual would like to know, like, it's the sexual offense registry where you can find out
exactly
if
right.
someone lives near you. And if there's a halfway house near you, you should be able to pull that up and go, okay, this neighborhood I need to be a little bit extra cautious
And inside
on.
the city of Meridian, there's zoning, so this can't just go anywhere. And so we're going to make sure that that isn't happening. But that's a local look at some foreign things. If you want to talk about statewide, what we've passed.
There's some things that have been bothering me, which is the parole officers and whether or not we're really keeping up with this. There was another horrible murder of an off-duty highway patrol officer that was working for the post office, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
Stopped on the side of the road down near Fayette, Mississippi, and was shot to death by an individual and who was on parole. And I think his mother had actually called in and said, this guy's not stable anymore, he's going to hurt somebody, and unfortunately he did. So I'm thinking that our parole officers have to be in a position to go get people that are acting out or that have violated their parole. Like we need to go enforce that and have them put back to where they should have been to start with. It's very difficult. We have added penalties for and increased the penalties for car theft. I think that's kind of the mid-line when people really start to get into trouble. They start with petty thieving of some sort or the other, then they steal your truck, which is $50,000 or $60,000 or whatever the trucks are anymore. They steal a truck. That's a major step, and we had thousands of them stolen in Mississippi.
Yeah, I can't even keep up with them here. I literally cannot.
I know. And then there were some stolen off lots, off of dealership lots. So we increased the penalties for those to where those individuals will have to go to prison when they are provided their judicial chance to say why they did that. I'm real interested in those. I'm real interested in stopping the ones particularly and getting people off the streets that are stealing your car before they get to murdering you in your home. We need to stop them at this level here, not when it's got to the thing this horrible event that happened here for these two elderly people in Meridian.
Tell me about this, and I don't know his name. We have a new guy that's over the prison system here that I think worked at Angola at one time. And from what I'm gathering, this guy's taking a whole different approach to our system there, where he's putting God in this and going, we got to teach this to rehabilitate people. Because if I'm not mistaken, people, if they're not a good criminal, when they go to prison, it's like they've graduated and they come out really good.
Yeah, he's building churches for these people, and the legislature, and Jeff and all of us have been real big on training for these individuals. 90-something% of them get out of prison sometime. What we want is them not to go back, or what they call recidivism. We don't want to see them again, so we're trying to get them trained. Different agencies are doing this, like ABC is training them to be carpenters and that kind of thing. We want those training programs to go on, and I think the commissioner has been good about doing that. So we're real anxious to make sure that these men and women don't come back to us. And when you stop the recidivism, it stops what you're talking about, which is being a better criminal when you get out than when you went in. We'd like for you to be a better welder when you get out, or a better carpenter, or a better something else than a criminal. So those programs are very active now, and Burl Cain has started.
I hear lots of good things about this man.
He's very religious about doing about building churches and having these individuals go. And I think a number of them have become pastors, online kind of pastors, and they provide leadership in the prison, hopefully towards looking at what you're going to do when you get out, not what you're doing that got you in here. So I'm hopeful about that. He was only going to stay a couple of years, and I think he's been here.
He's committed.
Yeah, Governor hired him about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, I'll say this. So Commissioner Burl Cain So I guess it was sometime around COVID that was going on that he got hired, or 2021 at the latest. Anyway, I remember I went up to him, and I'm just thinking about, how we passed the SAFER Act to make sure that bathrooms are safe. Well, I went to Commissioner Kane early, before all this stuff really was coming out, and said, listen, I'm understanding in other states they're letting men who claim to be women be housed in women prisons. And I'll say this, he gave me enough words of encouragement to know that I wouldn't have to worry about that as long as he's head of the Department of Corrections. And I can't repeat exactly what he said,
but it was very strong.
But it convinced me. So every time I've had to have a talk with him, meeting with him, nothing but respect, nothing but accepting blame or responsibility and being willing to work. And so, yes, sir, I think he's done a good job.
This kind of rolls hand in hand with this. And again, none of us have discussed all of this. This just kind of flows with it. It seems like America lost their way somewhere around 2021, somewhere along in there, to where it was no longer good to be a police officer. It was taboo. Police officers had things thrown at them. They were not backed. We have police departments across the state of Mississippi that don't have enough officers because people aren't signing up to do the job anymore, because it's just, you're going to get shot at. There's not a lot of reward. What is the answer to this in the state of Mississippi to help these departments? Used to, like, you watch One Adam 12. There was 2 guys in the car because there would be problems. You can't do that now because you got to spread them out.
We just graduated, and I spoke at the graduation for the state troopers. There are 29 more that came on board. That's small. We usually have double that number. I've talked, and I've ridden at night with city police officers, and you wouldn't believe the things that are yelled at them or spoken to them. You couldn't put them on the air, I'll put it that way.
It's one of those things you go, why would you want to do this after riding with them?
Your daddy? If you're saying something like that to an officer that's stopped in a car, I mean, not trying to arrest you or anything, he just stopped looking around, and they'll start yelling at him and whatnot. So it's very depressing, and it goes back tonight to really the tension and collapse of the family.
I agree with that.
Where you don't have some other authority telling you that that's not a good idea to do that, and you need to respect that particular authority. So I'm very concerned about that. We raised troopers' salaries $4,000 this year. They're still undercompensated. Police departments and everything are raising theirs to get people more qualified to go and do that job. But we need to remember, if you ever rode with them at night, or you ever saw some of the stuff they have to put up with, I mean, we couldn't hardly pay them enough.
No, you couldn't.
I mean, and the language that's used to them, and they can never get angry or mad. They've got to be very professional. Everybody's got on cameras now, so you've got to be where you're not the problem at these things. And people act out in the worst kind of ways, physically sometimes. So it's very difficult. I think we need to make sure that every mom and dad make sure they instill into their child a respect for authority.
Well, as a kid, I can remember that
allows us to have this radio show.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have anything.
This leads also to the next subject here. As I look at Jackson pops out in mind. Your vote is the most powerful thing that any of us have in the great state of Mississippi. And when we elect council members or aldermen, they make the decisions as to what the police departments can do. And correct me if I'm wrong, I remember watching Jackson, Mississippi, some of these little surrounding towns, I don't remember which one it was, where they wouldn't allow a police officer from one jurisdiction to follow over to apprehend somebody.
That was Pearl chasing people that came and robbed, and Pearl running back to Hinds County.
Why would a city want to stop a police officer from doing their job? Is that not saying it's okay to do crime in our town?
Well, I'll let you make your decisions about that, but I will tell you that if you go and rob in one town, you ought to be able to be pursued to wherever you're going in the other one. And I would tell you the fact that you may go to where now, and out in Flowood in Mississippi, if y'all been there, they have a lot of these shopping centers and really nice places to go. And
all I hear about is going over to buy the cupcakes. You got to go to Flowood and get a cupcake.
All that stuff is out there.
Got that here now.
When somebody steals or breaks in a car out there, and those police give chase, they don't want to stop at the river, at the Pearl River, and say, "Well, y'all guys made it again." So they've been pursuing them, and we had one tragic death out there where the guy they were chasing ran into a young postal
I remember that.
man and killed him. had a family and a wife and child. So it was just horrible. And so their answer is, well, we don't want people chasing people through the streets here. Our answer is, you ought not be robbing people wherever you are.
That's right.
That's correct.
So regardless,
You shouldn't blame the police department. You need to blame the criminal who broke the law.
100%. And look at places like Portland, Oregon, decided they were going to decriminalize everything. Now, man, nobody can go downtown in their place. The same as in San Francisco or these other towns that say, well, we don't really need to arrest anybody for anything, and everybody can use drugs on the street or wherever. No, man, that's not our society. That's not Mississippi, and that's not how we want to raise our children. That's not how we want to live.
And this is one of those questions. I'm just Joe here in Mississippi, and I don't know the answer. Is there ways that we can pass laws within the state to where it would be able to control these cities that have people that just really don't need to be in charge of our laws? Do you know where I'm going with that question?
Well,
is there something we can do?
it's kind of happened in one place already. With Capitol Police, and hey, listen, I will author legislation.
They are expanding and doing great things.
I will author legislation moving the capital of Mississippi to Meridian, Mississippi. That way we can have Capitol Police here in Meridian if that's what it takes.